Okay, so we're going to start a little bit unorthodox, and we're going to go with 4 quick fire round questions to begin with. We're just going to get straight in there, and then we'll do a bit of an intro after that. So, are you ready to go?
Have we started, yeah?
We're starting now, yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Question 1. Morning routine. Would you prefer a high-intensity workout or something more calm like meditation or something like that?
Do you have to choose between the two?
If you don't want to, it's your answer.
I like to try and do both, to be honest. So physical exercise is always like mostly cardio. Get my heart rate up, get a sweat on. And then I do breath work and meditation straight after.
To use it as a combination.
The same, I do the ice bath and then I do the sauna. So it's...
That's
you need
I'm
balance.
learning already because I was convinced that would be an A or B question, basically.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Second question. Favourite place to relax in Liverpool?
At home, to be honest. Yeah, I like being at home as much as I can.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
What's your favourite brand to come out of Liverpool in the last 5 to 10 years?
Frequency.
I felt like I should have just put that answer down straight away. Brilliant. We'll go into that a little bit in a bit as well. Last one. What's one thing you wish people knew about you that they probably don't? It's a pretty tough question to start with that, I think. But
It is, yeah. There's a lot of stuff about me that people don't really know, to be honest. My whole work side of things, I keep that completely off social media.
That's actually what I found difficult when I was doing a little bit of research just to make sure I've got all my ducks in a row. I know, obviously we've crossed paths a few times on a couple of different things, and obviously around the office when you were the boys at Passion and stuff, but I felt like stuff that I knew, some of it I couldn't actually find, which was interesting, which it sort of fits what you just said there. Some of it's off social media, some of it's not. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a hard question, but I can't really think of it, and that's the truth.
I reckon we'll come back to it at the end.
Okay.
Obviously, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
As I was just saying, the idea of this podcast, obviously, it's the first episode, and the idea of the podcast is to not necessarily not look back. We do want to look back and reflect, but it's to talk about the here and now and the lessons and the challenges that you're facing right now. And I feel like the reason why I want to do that is because I feel like it gives the most authentic advice.
Yeah.
Because it's how you're experiencing it now. You haven't quite had a chance to decompress and maybe package it up in a different way, which I feel like you get from a lot of other podcasts. Like I said, it's in hindsight. It's this is how I come over this challenge. This is how I achieve this success. And it's quite easy to, add a berry on, isn't it? Just add the 10% on to make it sound a little bit better than maybe what it was and stuff like that. There's obviously positives and negatives to not having the chance to decompress, but I want to talk about the now. We are obviously going to start by looking at earlier on in life, but that's the idea of the podcast. So thanks for being here. We tried to make it happen with the graphic podcast last year, and when obviously we only did 10 episodes or something like that. So when this first episode was coming up, I was like, I know exactly who I want on that first.
It's meant to be, yeah.
That first episode. So welcome. So earlier life, let's start. I know you've done podcasts before.
Yeah.
And I know, I think it's a big thing for a lot of people who grow up in Liverpool, but I think for you in particular, I get the feeling that your childhood and growing up was probably shapes a big part of what you do now.
Yeah.
Which obviously we'll move on to. So gives an insight. I'm going to call you Scano on the podcast, but who is Mark Scanlon? And gives an insight into...
That's what I'm trying to figure out, to be honest, which is a big thing what I speak about a lot. The fact that we don't actually really know who we are, which environment, experiences growing up, all these different things, obviously play a massive part of that. Born on Shield Road, moved to Tuebrook, moved from Tuebrook to Daysbrook. I moved house like 7-8 times before I actually grew up and left home myself. So I've always had this kind of feeling of like being unsettled anywhere I am. I'm quite comfortable moving about. In terms of growing up, in a nutshell, an amazing mum, the best you could ever wish for. Dad was a heroin addict from when I was 2, and my mum was pregnant with my little brother. So I think my mum was like 19, maybe with 2 kids, 20 with 2 kids, me being the oldest. So it wasn't easy. And we didn't have a lot, but she made sure we had enough. Dad wasn't there pretty much at all. And even when he was, he he wasn't, because he was on heroin. So
Yeah.
few experiences which definitely affected me throughout my life, but in a way, like, I just wouldn't change. I say this all the time, I wouldn't change anything. I'm grateful for all of it. My dad passed a couple of years ago through drugs and through drink, but in a sense I'm happy. He's peaceful and
Yeah.
he's where he is. So
Do you think you obviously there's loads of different things that come together to shape you as a person as you grow older, especially I know you talk about a lot about learning lessons and keep learning and stuff like that. You mentioned there about you give an insight into your mindset, really, and maybe your mindset, the way your mindset is now. Do you think you have struggled to take the positives out of it? Or do you think
I've had times in my life where I hated my dad. Was a good example. Like, I hated him. I felt like he abandoned me. I felt like he chose something else over his kids, and could never really understand from my level of consciousness at that time. It was like I felt like a victim. I felt like, being stolen of all these different like opportunities, and he'd see other people with their dads and things like that. And I felt like, like I'd been let down. There was different experiences and things happened which I could remember from being a kid. Like, would have seen my dad run away. Like, literally used to live in a set of masonettes. And my dad lived in a block of flats behind, and I remember sitting on the wall waiting for him to get me. And I'm coming out the flats, literally looking directly at me, and running, jumping in his mate's car and driving off. And I'm just sitting,
You know what?
I remember sitting like, why isn't he meant to be coming to take us somewhere? Or
There's
things like that, you know what I mean?
just in them short minutes, there's probably a lot more in common than I probably thought there was. There's obviously, this isn't about me, but probably maybe talk about it another time. But there's like these 10 things you said so far is like, it's like looking back into my past, yeah. And I think that's why you interest me so much, because I think every time we spoke, even though I think the last conversation we had over in Passions Off was probably the longest we'd spoke about, but it feels like I feel like I definitely did, and other people take something from when they speak to you. Might be something little, could be an insight, could be a mindset thing, it could be a feeling, like a positive feeling, a chilled feel, like whatever. And that probably makes more sense. The reason why I've always probably resonated with you in the little conversations that we've had, because there's probably stuff there that
I try and avoid speaking about like my upbringing and things like that, because for one, I've got loads of mates who had it a million times worse than I did, and they turned out to be really good people. But I don't regret, and I wouldn't change anything. So it's not, I don't look at it like as in I get a violin out and say, woe is me, and whatever. I'm so happy with where I am, like in the present now. I've kind of learned over time to turn every single negative thing, or what I looked at as a negative thing at the time, into something positive. So having a shit dad has made me want to be a good dad. In a sense, my dad using drugs is for whatever reason. I've never touched a drug in my whole life. Never snorted a line of Charlie. Been around loads of lads snorting lines of Charlie. I've never took an ecstasy tablet. Been around loads of lads taking ecstasy tablets. I've never felt the urge to go on a lad's holiday, unless it involves like ice water and walking on mountains. So I've always, like, a lot of them things have made me different. Like for me, I'm for a long time now, I've had the realisation that, like, really looking at a lot of the people who I grew up around, and based on where they are, some of them are actually living in hell, and I've got a really good life. So it's like,
it's interesting, is it, when you're growing up and you sort of get the opportunity to see both sides of the coin a little bit. Obviously that happens in many different ways, isn't it? Some people get themselves out of it. Some people have amazing older parents. Like mine was the same. It was my mum that was strong enough to steer us in a different direction, same way with what you mentioned there. And when you get to see both sides of the coin, and then you can look back at maybe people that you knew years ago, and you could look at when you're in a bad scenario, bad situation, or bad mindset or something, you look back and you go, that's where you're winning based on that experiences. Now I always say, me and Lucy talk about it, because I guess she's had a little bit more of a conventional bringing up than I did, really.
Like a normal upbringing.
Yeah, a normal upbringing. Obviously, everyone has their issues, but a normal upbringing. And I've always said to her, like, I think I'm a better person for the experiences that I had growing up, because they're all lessons, and it's a notch on the belt. It's like if you had a sack and you could put a lesson in for everything you
I
learn.
always think, like, again, I'm a deep thinker, so I think for me, I don't know how I ended up the person. No, we don't know how. It just happens, in a sense. So for me to look and think, like, a lot of the people who grew up around me and people who I know have been through really bad upbringings, or, you know, experienced loads of trauma, and, you know, whether the parents are drug addicts or abuse or whatever it is, and then they turn out good people. I'm like, but so many other people don't. Like, the majority of people end up following in the same footsteps.
Yeah.
They do download and we become our environment, in a sense. So if you grow up in that environment, to become the opposite to kind of what you grew up in and what you experienced.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I actually realise and appreciate how much of a blessing that is, and I'm thankful every day. I've got 2 amazing kids.
Yeah.
No, a big part of that's because my mum was an amazing mum, but at the same time, she was working 2-3 jobs, so she wasn't like, and she was only a kid herself. So it's like, you know, I've got nothing but love and appreciation for my mum.
Yeah.
And like that, she like, there's so many things like where I can, like, it's funny because I was sitting with my son last night and he said, "Who's your biggest inspiration?" And I haven't got one. The only person really who I could think of was my own mum, because she just spent her whole life basically trying to better herself. So whether it was 2 jobs, she'd try and get a bit of a better job. You know, eventually she ended up getting to a position where she could buy her own house. No one gave her nothing. Like, she'd done it all herself.
Yeah.
From cars, she'd have a shit car. I mean, we've had some of the worst cars you can imagine growing up. Like,
What's the worst one?
Fucking a Mini with all different colour panels, or a Metro, you know, a 2-door Metro.
Yeah.
And I think, like, at the time, she'd take like 6 or 7 of us to the beach.
Just pile
in the
everyone
summer. It wouldn't cost a penny. Load of sandwiches in a bag. She'd fill the car full of all the kids from, like, you know, from the Masonettes, basically.
Yeah.
And the mates' kids, and we piss off at the beach for the day and have some of the best days ever. Do you know what I mean? But, and that was her on her own, just there with all the kids.
There seems to be a bit of probably a trend in that in all the work that I've seen you do. It's obviously we'll go on to obviously fighting and like the UFC and all that type of stuff, but in I guess the business ventures and a lot of the community work you do, because obviously not all of it is business ventures, aren't they? Some of them are just soul passions and things. There seems to be a thread of bettering yourself and bettering other people. It's pretty much, there's always an element in that in everything you do, isn't it?
And if I'm to look back and reflect, the only thing I can think of which would kind of give me that kind of mindset or that attitude is seeing me mum do it. Yeah. And that there's no other reason why other than just seeing her constantly working to just better herself.
Yeah. That's cool. I think this is why these episodes are so cool, because like I said to you earlier on, the whole, we'll get a mix of different guests on this podcast. And up to now, I've sort of looked at the 2 sides that we go down. They're either they've built a brand or they are the brand. So obviously what we do is all around branding. And that's why it's an interesting to see the collision of a brand and a person like yourself, because you are the brand, your own brand. You've done things along the way. You've built brands. You're the person. So then to see the, like, under the hood of what makes people like you tick is the real value in these conversations, I think. So when you're younger and stuff, obviously you talked about earlier on in your mum and things like that. What was the driver of little Scano, the lad, the Masonettes, and like what was your passion?
I don't know. Like from an early age, I got into training and exercise. Like, other kids were asking for whatever, you know, for toys and stuff, and I wanted like a roam. I remember we lived in the Masonettes, and I had a little room, and I had a row machine and a trampoline and a punch bag.
Straight from the off.
And that was like, you know, maybe I loved Rocky films when I was a kid. I'd said this before on podcasts, like, Rocky proper inspired me. I'd watch a Rocky film and I'd literally want to fucking go out and have a fight or go for a run.
Just like a few.
I'd want to move energy and do something. Other than that, I don't know. Like, as I say, my dad and none of my uncles trained or exercised. My mum didn't train or exercise. No, I just found it. Like, my mates were drinking at 17. I was training, and
that was your outlet.
That was my thing. Yeah.
Do you think that played a big part in? Obviously, you mentioned before about when you brought up in a certain scenario, and then you end up almost being the opposite of what people would expect you to be. Do you think going to the gym and all that type of stuff was a main driver? Obviously, you talked about your mum and things, and that obviously all consolidates into being the driver, doesn't it? But do you think fitness, exercise, looking after yourself, bettering yourself, was that in you from an earlier on?
I think a lot of it, like, we moved house loads of times growing up. Like, my mum was here now, she'd tell you, I was always fighting, and I think that was like, maybe it was coming from a place of frustration or anger, or, you know, probably was, but I was fighting all the time as a kid, even in school. I was fighting, and I got a reputation for being able to look after myself, and I welcomed it. You know, I think now maybe that came from a place of fear. I got loads of beatings being a kid, by older kids and other kids and things like that. But it never really bothered me. I'd fight a lot,
and then you get
this identity then for being able to fight, and people respect you for it, and
that, you know, in your case, it turned into something a little bit more than that, didn't it? Into
I was playing football and I was fighting every weekend. I was an angry teenager.
So at what point did you realise that we'll brand it as fighting? Obviously, there's a million different ways. I was about fighting on the streets and with kids in school and stuff like that. But at what point did you realise that fighting was actually gonna end up being a way that you make a living?
I actually fell into fighting. I was 19, 20 with a big ego. Like, thought it was this big hard case. At the time, everyone was lifting weights, one body part a day, a little bit of boxing. And I just convinced myself I was didn't know this fucking, like, the hardest man in the world. And I think we spoke about this on like a podcast years ago. And I had a bit of trouble with someone and we had a fight, and I actually realised in that fight, and I didn't lose, and you know, you could say I won, but you know, whatever happened. But I realised that I was nowhere near as like
what you thought it was.
Who I thought I was, yeah. So I'd convinced myself I was this big, like proper, the hardest man in the world. And I had a proper fight where two people meet on a park, and you roll around for 5 minutes and you're blowing out your arse, and I realised
and it gets scrappy.
Actually, I'm not. So
yeah.
I went from like lifting.
Would you look back at that as
that's
like
one of the most pivotal
win?
And valuable moments in my life, because I literally just realised, like, you need to be fit. You know.
What do you think? How do you think that would have impacted you if you turned up to that park and you had a scrap and you just absolutely leathered him everywhere, and you did turn out to be who you thought you was? Do you think
if I'd have knocked him out in 10 seconds and it was a lucky punch, it wouldn't have done me no favours? I actually only won because they asked us both. It was an organised fight, and the people who took us said, "Do you want to carry on?" And the other person was tireder than me. And they said, but they asked him first, and then they asked me, and he didn't answer. And I think it was like a no. And then they asked me, and I'd seen him not answer and basically say no. So I went, I want to carry on.
I'll carry on. Yeah.
And then the other was like, no, do a fuck. I just want to go. But it was like, you know, I got my hand raised. I won essentially, but you know, did I win really? We were both just as tired as each other, and we both rolling around like, fucking, you know, on the floor. So it's like, I just realised that day, it's like, you need to be fit, and there's a lot more to fighting than what, you know, just rolling around on the floor and punching each other.
Obviously, you don't need to go into the details of it, but do you think the other person, it's been a lesson to the other person as much as it's been a lesson to you?
I don't know. I bumped into the other person, and I don't know whether he'd ever even see this, but we're actually mates now. If we see each other, we say hello, and in a lot of ways, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to him because he's been part of, like...
You'll have a laugh about it and so.
He being here today, yeah, and the fact we can have a laugh and whatever, you know, he's a good lad, so it's, you know, it is what it is. So I just went literally from lifting weights, that was like the eye-opener then. It was like, okay, I need to get fit and I need to lose weight. I was like 19 and about 16, 17 stone, doing one body part a day, thinking that was training hard, and you know, a couple of 200 rounds on the bags once a week.
Yeah.
And I went from that to literally running up mountains every week, changing my diet. Just like I knew, it was like it was a wake-up call.
What, because I get I get more than the impression, but you're quite a chilled, you come across quite a chilled guy.
Yeah.
Quite mellow. Good conversation. You don't seem like you're really in a rush to let off anywhere. You're just in the moment. Do you think you get that from that type of exercise and lifestyle?
Yeah.
Versus just relying on like just fighting in the gym?
I think especially with the intensity to how we used to train and fight, like Carbon is renowned for, like the way we train is absolutely like ridiculous. It's like 2.5 hours in the morning. Our warm up is like another gym's full training session. You train in the afternoon for an hour, you train in the evening. And I think what that done is it just literally sucked every bit of like anger or, you know, even like ego. It just pulled it all out of me, because you get humbled on the mats. Doesn't matter how technical and how good you are, you do. especially when like Colin was my coach. He fucking just like destroyed us in that gym. But he also showed you that like what you're actually physically capable of.
Yeah.
Because when I'd speak to lads from other gyms and we discussed the training, what they were doing, what we were doing, half the time you think they think you were lying when they tell you what they do. But I just remember feeling in a place over time where like someone would pull up next to me in the car and give me shit, or you know the way you get into like bits of like just shit throughout the day with people, especially when you're younger.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't be bothered. I was just like, I have nothing left.
You can't. Yeah.
So I just always felt like this sense of like just being calm and chill, just through training so intensely. And then the other side of it's actually knowing that you are capable of being able to fight and look after yourself. And you've got nothing to prove to no one. So
it feels to me like that would be, again, the word peaceful, quite a peaceful place to be.
Mm.
You don't feel like you owe anyone anything. You don't feel like you've
got nothing to prove. Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that I think I've probably experienced that over the year. Probably not in really, maybe in a bit of like rugby and stuff like that, but in business really. I think I spent years early on in business feeling like I had to prove something. That, going back to your background and stuff, nobody'd ever really started their own business or anything like that. So proving that you could do it, even though like maybe you didn't grow up with somebody who was running businesses and you had no silver spoon in your mouth and you were starting on 0.0 and it was all up to you.
Yeah.
I probably wore that as a bit of a chip on my shoulder for a little bit, and I feel like I was probably, I don't know who to, I was trying to prove something to someone.
But that, in a sense, that can serve you in a certain way, and it can get you to a certain place. You know, it's in a sense, is it using negative experiences or different things when you're being younger, flipping them to turn them into something positive to make you more driven?
I feel like that probably in my case, I think that probably is the case. I think it probably served me for a period of time until I became a little bit more wise, and like especially like growing a team and stuff like that. And then obviously like sort of learning together like with Lucy and stuff, and going through all the experience. We've been together a long time, like we've been together since we were 15, so we've done a lot of growing together and stuff and a lot of learning, and you get to a point where it probably no longer serves you. I think I got to a point
I think you've got to go through a stage though, being obsessed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if it's money you want, you've got to be obsessed with money. If it's an athlete, you've got to be selfish and obsessed with being the best. And it does serve you to a certain point if that's what you know, if that's what you want to achieve. You want to be the best fighter in the world, a world champion, you've got to be obsessed, and that's got to come before your family and everything else. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But as you say, you do get to a place where you use it and it serves you, and then, you know, you can't. I think with age is a big factor as well. You just start to change and your values change. Like once you've won that world title, or what you'd obsess over then.
So when at that time then, when you were, we'll say like 19, 20-year-old Scano, and you felt at peace, that's about the right time, wasn't it?
Yeah,
where you were.
I didn't feel I was in. I actually started fighting when I was about 20.
Yeah.
Quite
late on, isn't it?
Then though, MMA was brand new. So like where MMA now is like everyone knows MMA.
So like where you got like Cage Warriors and then UFC and
there was only like a couple of promotions in the UK, and I actually around 20, I became mates with a lad called Paul Cahoon, and he was like the main. He's a lunatic. I think he lived off like Bro Green or around Old Swan, but he was travelling all over Europe before anyone even knew what MMA was. And like the very early days of the
fighting.
I mean, like fighting anyone
anyone and
everyone. He loved fighting. Like, in his words, I love fighting juice bombs. That was his. The bigger and the musclier they are, the better. And he's like, for me, he's like the pioneer of MMA, especially in Liverpool. Like he brought it here. He was fighting and promoting shows and things again, like not for money, just for the love of fighting.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to him by a good mate of mine at the time. It was helping me just get fit, taking me up mountains. Like this lad was 19 stone and just flying up mountains. I was like 15, 16 stone, looked in 10 times better shape and couldn't keep up with it. He usually just leave me, do you know what I mean? But he introduced me to Paul. Paul took a shine to me, I think, and was helping me just purely out of like just being generous with his timing.
So at that point then, you mentioned that you were sort of getting your output was, or your outlet was fighting and training so hard.
I found something what I loved, yeah.
So but then you also said a couple of minutes ago that you go through a stage where you had to be obsessed with certain things. So when you were obviously a talented fighter, you were, you could handle yourself, but you weren't getting caught up in little shitty stuff like arguments and road rage and things like that. What was you obsessing with? What was your obsession at that time?
My obsession was fighting, like actual martial arts. I'd train for 2.5 hours in the morning.
As in the skill of it and mastering
the actual like martial arts itself, just fighting. I was obsessed with fighting. If I wasn't training, I was watching instructional videos and watching fights. If I weren't doing that, I was eating, sleeping. I lived and breathed fighting. It was on my mind 24/7. And that became my love for, like, I didn't have kids or nothing at the time. Obviously, I'm still with the same woman who I'm with now. And, grateful she used to just leave me. I'd go to Brazil for like a month or 2 months at a time and just train while I was over there. And then I'd come home.
When you look back now.
Yeah.
Probably took a lot from her to leave you to do.
Yeah, we were only young as well, in our early 20s, up until I was doing that up until about 25, 26. So it was like over 5-6 years. I'd spent 2-3 months a year in Brazil. I've got I've got a family over there, like not even friends, they're like family. But I went over Paul when I first started training with Paul. Not long after I'd had that fight and started to lose weight and get into shape, I trained for a few weeks with Paul. Paul had a trip planned to Brazil. Flew over just as a bit of a holiday to Brazil. Trained a little bit while I was there, but met some lads over there. Maybe like 1 or 2 who could speak a bit of English. Came home, and after being home for a week, literally just messaged them and said, can I come back over? Flew over and stayed there for nearly 3 months on my own. But I was like an absolute beginner. So again, it's like, I loved it. I just knew, like, literally from the sessions I'd done with Paul, it was like, I just find this, I just love fighting. That's like...
So what did it like from there on? Because at this point, it's not your living, is it? You're not earning a living from it. It's not. So what does the journey look like to go from being that committed to something that isn't giving you a financial return? Obviously, you are a little bit younger, so finance is really, if you're not obsessing over money and you're obsessing over fighting,
just any money you get. Like, I remember going to getting a credit card and like borrowing like 6-7 grand, booking flights and things like that. So like any money what I had, I'd just use it to get away.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, I weren't too bothered about much else. I just loved MMA.
So how did it feel then when it did become a living? When you did start earning money from it, was it a different feeling? Because a lot of people, when they talk about, especially in sport and things, I think when you're starting a business and you go from doing something as a passion and a hobby because you just absolutely love doing it.
Yeah,
and you get good at it.
At that point, though, when I was fighting, the only people who were really earning big money was like Mike from the UK, was like Mike Bisping, and it would be Terry Edmond, people like that. They had loads of fights in the UFC, were well established. And towards the end, with bonuses and things like that, they did earn good money, but you'd be surviving like most of them off like coaching and teaching in between and coaching classes, one-to-ones. You spend most of your life basically on the mats.
Yeah. When did it feel real then that was a possibility that you could turn a passion into?
It really became my goal probably about 3-4 fights in. I had 11 fights in total. My 7th fight was in the UFC. Was it? Yeah, my 7th fight was in the UFC. But it was probably after doing it for a couple of years, I was like, I could actually make. Yeah. Because at the time, it was only UFC and things were only early on then. It was only like really getting at the start of getting really popular, especially in the UK. Yeah. So initially, I didn't look at it as which was ever going to earn me a living or,
and obviously it's not something you can do forever, is it? So it's...
No. But obviously as time went on, it definitely, like, my goal did become to earn a living being a fighter.
Do you ever reflect back on like your fighting career?
I have done a lot in the past, yeah, especially like in my early 30s, not long after I came away from fighting. Because what happened, I got a fight. I had my 6th fight was in the Olympia in Liverpool, and it was like
a some boxing there.
Yeah, it was like a 10-second knockout, but the UFC, because I was cornering and I had like 4 or 5 other teammates in the UFC were already watching me, so I had a fight won quickly. Someone pulled out in Germany 3 weeks later, so they basically gave me an opportunity to go over and fight. And I went over to Germany. It was like 3 weeks after I'd won in the Olympia, and lost the decision. So I think at that time, it was like the week I was actually at that time, my missus was pregnant with my son. Financially, we weren't in the best position. I got this contact off the UFC, and in all honesty, I felt like at the time my head kind of fell off. Because
Was that a lot at once? Everything was
it was
just...
too much at once, yeah, for where I was at that stage.
How old was you then?
Just turned 27.
27.
But then it's the fear of like, you know, what if this fighting doesn't work out, and you know, I'm going to provide, and the sacrifices you've got to make. Like for me, I was coaching at the time, I'm fighting, so I'd like, for me to feel like I was developing or improving, I'd feel like I'd have to go away. Like Colin was an amazing coach, is an amazing coach, and I had a good team there, but I was kind of like one of the main ones in the gym, and I've been for a long time, so
Seeking that challenge.
I felt comfortable in the gym. The training was never comfortable because it was always so intense, but I was in my comfort zone every time I was in that gym.
It's funny you when you think about what you said at the start of the podcast, where you said about being comfortable moving around.
Yeah,
probably makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? Obviously, there's other things in there, the fighting specific stuff, seeking the challenge, going to maybe fight with, you know, better
but
fighters.
In some way, I think that's definitely played a part in the fact that even like me, I went to Brazil for a week with Paul, and felt didn't even give a second thought over going back over there to, like, you know, to just a completely different country. Like the gym, like where we went over there was like, it was rough, you know, like, you know, and it was scary as well.
There is a big part in like the humbling side of it when you go over to different countries like that, where you see maybe how other people live, and maybe it's a completely different culture to...
The biggest thing I took away from being over there with the lads over there was like, imagine you're there for 12 weeks, none of them really know me, I'm just this English lad who's come over, big lad as well. So like I laugh, but they just fucking absolutely like, they just blitz me. I mean, I come in every day and they just wipe the floor with me. Brand new, fucking like English, Scouse, can't speak the same language, none of them know me, don't know me, nothing. Probably say 50-60% of the lads in the gym are from the favelas, so you know, they're all gangbangers and that anyway. And they just fucking wiped the floor at me, but it was like, I don't mean to say in like a Rocky film type thing, but after like 4 or 5 weeks, I showed up every day, you know, I loved it. I'd get fucked and I'd come back. And then they started helping me loads, so like lads they just took a shine to me, everyone in the gym, it's like they welcomed me in, and they'd be choking me.
Started to build.
Yeah, they'd be choking me or armbarring me or whatever, and then after the session, they'd be coming over, and like they can't speak, we couldn't speak. They'd just be communicating through showing me and demonstrating like the right way to escape. And I just remember feeling like a really, really like, just feeling loads of gratitude and love for like the people over there, because I didn't have anything to give them, nothing. And they would give me all this time and attention after the sessions and things. And like,
it's a bit of a trend, isn't it? Well, I know like obviously a couple of fighters in Liverpool go to different places, don't they? Like you got like Thailand and different things. So
at the time it wasn't though. Again, it was like MMA was brand new.
So it was something a little bit.
So like I was probably one of the first ones to go. Well, I went to Brazil and stayed there for 3 months. I went there with fucking like, I went there with like a skinhead, like a big lad, normally is. And I came home 3 months later and my missus was like, who the fuck's this? I had full cauliflower ears on both ears.
Really?
I grew my hair and I'd lost about 2 stone.
Let's find a picture of that.
So
what were you talking, like curls or like?
No, just
long,
just like short back and sides. I went there with a completely like number note all over, and I came home with it probably similar to what I've got now. So it was like, you know, it was a massive 3 months in my life.
What do you think? Obviously, you touched on little bits of it already. Obviously, you're visually a little different when you go back to a place like that. But what do you bring back in terms of like personal development? So putting the fighting aside, and obviously the skill progression that you've had there, what do you, when you come back from an environment like that, what do you learn about yourself?
It's very humbling because you've got like black belts, brown belts, purple belts, even blue belts at that point, like half the size, and you can't get them off. I mean, like choking you, standing up and kicking me and punching me all over the gym. So again, it's that whole ego thing, you know. I'd learned a lot about myself through the fight which I'd had, which actually led me to being over there. It led me into MMA and getting fit and losing weight, and I learned a lot about myself in that. But being over there for 3 months, I learned like there's actually, you know, you can think you're tough and you can think you're hard, but then you've got someone 9 stone who's been practicing lucha libre and MMA for 10 years, and they can just do whatever they want, like anything to you. And then that made me look at other people as well. You know, there's people in Liverpool, big reputations, people who People like, don't mess with him. I'd be like, I know lads half his size. You just destroy him in 2 minutes.
So it gives you a bit of a different outlook.
He just humbles you a lot, and you stop judging people by what they look like. It's definitely like something.
It's quite a powerful thing to have in your bank, isn't it? To be able to just have a completely different outlook on.
It made me just a more respectful person in general. You know,
simply starting by not judging a book by its cover, but then going
simply by not having such a big ego.
Yeah. Do you think ego is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think ego is just a false self. That's all it is, and we've all got a false self. If you've got no control or no awareness of it, then obviously it's like a ship with no captain. Do you know what I mean? It can run away with itself, and it does.
And it could turn into something that...
I've worked in prisons, and most of the lads in there because of ego and pride. I speak about kids now. Kids are all carrying blades. Why? Ego and pride.
Yeah. Particularly staying in those scenarios, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be the devil if you don't get to know it. But I think the more like the stuff I speak about a lot is self-awareness, consciousness, being like familiar with actually who you are, understanding your true self and your true nature.
Yeah, I want to get onto that because I know a lot of, like I said, a lot of the community work you do and stuff is around that, isn't it? Just as a segue to sort of take on, because I am really interested in the business side of Scano as well. I know you've done a lot of podcasting about over the years and stuff, and a lot of it is sharing your story and things. I want to tap into the business brain.
Okay.
But obviously at this point we're sort of going through the timeline of life. I'm sure we've missed a couple of big things, but we're in the timeline. So you're at the point where you're in the UFC. You said 11 fights in total.
Yeah.
11 fights in total. What did it feel like when you were getting towards the end of that? What kind of timescale are we looking at here? So 11 fights over how many years?
So I was fighting I weren't fighting very frequently because of coaching, because of going away and things like that. Picked up loads of injuries, which again, I created most of them myself, which is just a completely different that's another podcast, you know, like manifestation, how we can create, cause our own sicknesses and things like that, which we do. But it kind of, I retired, I had the fight in the UFC at 27, just turned 27, I think it was, 26, 27. And then, obviously that's within the same month, my son was born. And I kind of just my head fell off, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I always say, I had a lot of reasons for stopping fighting, but ultimately it was probably a lack of belief in myself, because no matter what, if you know that you're going to make it, then you can work through them struggles for a couple of years because you know it's going to be, it's going to pay off. Yeah. And at the time, I mustn't have had that belief.
Yeah, to be able to see.
Because I decided to step away. You don't I was borrowing money to survive, in a sense, knowing that if I go to work, I can pay it back. So I had belief in that I could earn money, or I could basically, and I needed that, find a way to get it. But I didn't have the same belief in terms of martial arts and me fighting.
So something was transactional.
So business and things was the safer option for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I chose to do. Around that time, I started understanding, I started studying the mind and things like that. Which again, like how you say, everything I've got and the person I am today is through just studying and learning more about the mind and reality and what creates this whole experience, what we all go through.
Would you say that again, the driver to research the mind and things was because of the mental position?
Because I knew it had let me down in fighting. I knew that was my weakness, really. And if I look back now, I think every weakness I've ever had in my life, I've managed to turn it around from negative situations into positive. And I just had this realisation I was fucking very skillful, very technical. I was beating some top 10 UFC fighters up when I go. So I go to Vegas a couple of times to train. I was training with elite level fighters who were well established in the UFC, and I was matching them. I was beating them sometimes. They were beating me sometimes. So I knew how good I was, but I still, as a martial artist, I failed because I never reached my potential, nowhere near it, which is absolutely fine. But from that understanding and knowing what it was, which was my weakness and what had let me down, I became obsessed with understanding more about it to turn it into my strengths. And that, I can sit here today and say, if you put the 41-year-old mindset with the 27-year-old body, I'm quite confident I'd have been a world champion. But I wasn't, and it wasn't meant to be, and that's fine, do you know what I mean?
But that's the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's, which we'll go into, because I know, like, again, I keep mentioning the business and the community side of stuff. I'm sure you benefit a lot now from having that mindset still now. It might not be in martial arts, but it's in all of the walks of life.
Yeah, like literally your mind's everything, your imagination. We create everything ourselves. And that's a bold statement. And it's a difficult statement for people to understand, but our beliefs and our perceptions of reality is what shapes our reality collectively as a planet full of people, but individually as well. And like actually knowing that your whole life is just a reflection of your beliefs.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in yourself, then you won't achieve nothing. You know, it's impossible virtually.
So then when you go from like looking at the end of that career, where did the business start going then? What was your sort of introduction into business?
Most of the best people I've met, which business and things have come from, have been through martial arts, like coaching people. So like I've got a partner who's my best mate now. I met him through coaching him in Cowbon, and an opportunity come up to become partners with him in a security company. And that was like, you know, got to the point that like when I came away from fighting, I was struggling. Didn't know what I was going to do.
So what age are you at now?
About 30, 29. No, actually, yeah, I was about 20, 27, 28 when I met Dave. And he had a security company which had been going for years. Him and his partner split up. And I ended up taking over his partner's position. And like, it was covering me bills. Well, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I was still a bit short at the end of each month, but, you know.
That was the start of it.
That was the start, yeah. And I think we ended up getting a few things happened, and we had security on a bar. We ended up the bar was getting in the process of getting repossessed. Someone else who had coached at the time, who was actually a business partner of mine as well now, and a partner with Dave. He worked at the company who were repossessing the bar. So, you know, I don't believe it. Like, I do believe in luck in a sense, but I don't at the same time. Something I'm still not sure, but things just happen.
Yeah.
But I end up introducing us to the people who were repossessing the bar, and me and my partner, they basically went to them with no experience. Like, Dave worked indoors and security and nightclubs for years. I hadn't. I didn't even really go to any. But we end up going and having a sit down with them and saying, look, the guy who owns the bar owes us money for security. If this bar closes, it's a big part of our income.
Yeah,
it's gonna put us in the shit, and they basically give us an opportunity to take over the lease at no cost to try and recoup the money which we were going to lose, or which we lost because the guy who had the bar, who ran it into debt, he was going through some of his own problems. So we took over the bar, ran it for a year, made some money off it, like basically turned it around. We was just calling favours in off DJs.
Yeah.
Anyone who could get in there just to bring people in. We ran it, turned it around, got it making a good profit. It's called Chameleon Bar. And then we sold it a year later and made some money and invested it into property, and that was pretty much it then. You started buying it.
Speculate to a key, like
terraced houses and things like that. And like we built like millions of pounds worth of residential and commercial now. Yeah, a lot in Liverpool, some in Manchester. But it started off buying like terraced houses in Tubru.
Yeah, and then going from there. How much were you paying for that at the time, probably?
I had another lad who coached. I had a woman reach out to me because her son was struggling, and I started coaching him. She was an estate agent, and she just started helping me and giving me bits of advice, and properties would come up and you say, that's a good one, buy that. And so I was getting it for less than market value anyway.
So I bet you pay more for your car now, probably, for what you were getting the houses for back then.
I was paying like 50 grand for an house. That you pay a 25% deposit, like 12.5 grand deposit. I was spending maybe like 5 grand doing it up. I was getting them for cheap anyway because of their connections.
Yeah.
And then they were going back, they were either going back on the market, or I was getting them on short, like 12-year mortgages. So over 6-7 years, a big chunk would come off the mortgage. They'd enough doubled in value at the time.
Yeah.
So I'd done all right. I ended up with like maybe 10, 11. And I ended up doing all right out of them, and more than like...
So then from like... Because you've got, from what I can see, I guess, from the outside, which is a good perspective to have, in my opinion, because anyone that's listening and watching is from the outside as well. You going from sort of the security company and then a bar, making a bit of money, having them money to invest in property. What was the next venture? Were there any ventures after that you just started yourself, or have they always been around collaborating with people? Like, you're this person that's good at this and that's that person.
I'm absolutely like an expert in nothing. But I'm one of them. If I need to learn something or figure something out, I will. And if I can't, I'll find someone who can. So my strength is connections and delegation. Like I've got 8-9 businesses that I'm involved in, but I've got partners in all the more incomes, 8-9 different incomes. But I don't play the main role in any of them.
That's why, like I said earlier on, that's why I think it's really cool to have you on as the first guest, because it is that combination of building brands. Like you're wearing one of them now, Frequency. Like it's one of the most.
Yeah, I just spot opportunities or people like Hassan who've got Frequency with. Like the fact it was called Frequency, and I'd contemplated starting a clothing brand just because I have got good connections. Like I'm mates with people who've got like millions of followers on social media, and they are good friends.
Yeah.
So I've thought over like collaborating with them or doing something in the past, but I know that whatever you do, you've just got to put you've got basically got to love it. It's got to be your passion. And I haven't actually had a passion for any of the businesses that I'm involved in. It's just been ideas, and I've spotted an opportunity to make some money, and it's worked or it hasn't.
One question I have then, because the whole focus for me in particular around Liverpool as a city right now is brand, because I genuinely believe that Liverpool's got some of the most exciting brands, whether it's in hospitality, whether it's in like some of the clothing companies that are up and coming, Frequency being one of them. Like there's so much good stuff that's happening. Do you have much appreciation for brand? And I know I'm not going to ask you about impact, because I know that everything you do is
based on impact.
Is based on impact. But what about brand? What does that mean to you?
In what sense?
When you go into these ventures with people, do you have a consideration for brand awareness, or is it more that's your own partner's job and you deal with like the connections and the output of the impact?
I think the thing that like for me, it's about solving problems. So if I go into a company, say Frequency for example, if I can see the potential in that, the potential is the person who owns the business. For me, if there's you can work with a brand, you can build a brand, but you can't build a person who set the company up and who's basically pulling all the strings behind it, driving, losing sleep, working hard. It's like, that it's about the passion really. Yeah. What they're prepared, and the work, what they're prepared to put into it.
I think that's because obviously one of the questions we get, probably the most asked question, is should they build what we consider a logo brand, being like Frequency, looking at the logo, or should we build a personal brand? So that would be then in this case Hassan being the person that everybody knows of, and it's almost like who you know most of, the company or the person.
I think they're all going to be different, and it's going to depend on what the brand is, and what industry or what type of business it is. But I think now we're in a world where people want to see what's going on behind the brand, especially for like clothing companies. We've got that much competition out there now. Like, people love the whole like reality, I say reality TV thing, but people want to see who's behind the brand. So I think if you can crack the both of them, you've got a strong brand, and then you've got good people behind it, who people can resonate with.
I think I believe that what gets in people's way when they build brands, companies, that stops them from sharing the people is they feel threatened. I see that quite a lot.
Yeah, like the competition.
Yeah, like
side of things.
If you've got, like, for example, let's take our team for example. Like there was years where I was the creative and I was doing all the design and the visuals and building these brands. And now we're still only 5-6 years in, and Jay and Joe are sat there. I wouldn't even bother designing something myself now. They're better than I am. They work for me.
Yeah, and what you're saying, I agree with. The biggest thing which holds people back is they want to control and do everything themselves. And that's, in a sense, it can be just a bit of fear, basically, of handing that responsibility over to someone else. But for me, I've been fortunate because none of the things which I'm really involved in, I'm attached to. I'm quite happy to pass that responsibility over. I'm looking for people who can do a better job than me, because I can openly say, I can solve problems, I've got good ideas, I like to think outside the box, but I'm not an expert, and I've got
But there's a certain level of clarity that you need to understand what you are good at and what you're not good at, and a lot of people don't have that, do they?
I just think for any business to succeed, there's got to be passion, and you've got to really put that time and energy into it. And if I've found something which I love and I want to turn that into a career, then that's all well and good. You don't mind, you'll put that time and energy into something because you love it. It's your passion. For me, I never found that through my motivation behind earning money and being successful in business is being able to take care of my family, to be able to live a good life myself, and I love giving money away. And it sounds like the best thing about having money is being able to help people and give it away and use it for, like, you know, once your needs are met, like, I'm not saying like give everything away and leave yourself with nothing. I'm saying like once you've met your own needs, the best thing about being financially in a good position is being able to help the people you love and care about and the community.
And if you was to put it down to maybe one or two things, from like a business perspective, what would you say were the main things that got you in that position of meeting your own needs? Was it a certain type of business? Was it a certain way of doing business? Was it a certain, like, obviously we talked about revenue streams. Obviously we all know that multiple revenue streams is what's advised and things like that. But what would you say is the main thing that's put you in
early on? I had an obsession. Like, I loved Jim Rohn, and I remember him saying the average millionaire's got 7 sources of income. So I just got this obsession where I need 7 sources of income and I'll be a millionaire. And that was my goal.
Have there been any mistakes? Not necessarily mistakes. Have there been any failures in business?
Loads, yes. I opened a pizza restaurant on Castle Street, which looked like it was earning fortunes when you drive past on a Friday night. But, you know, there's 3 of us involved in it, which means no one's actually putting 100%. It's like that saying, it's too many cooks spoil the broth. I've got mates in there, fucking amazing. They've got other restaurants and things like that, but, you know, no one was actually putting all the time and energy into it to make it successful. No one was living and breathing it. No one was there every day. I believe if you've got a restaurant, you know, you've got to have that actual love for it. And I didn't have it. I just go there and eat a pizza every couple of weeks with the kids, show me face. You know, they might text me, say, what do you reckon on this for the menu? But like, yeah or no, and it didn't work.
So is that something that you always make sure that is in the different businesses that you're involved in, that there is always still?
If I haven't got the passion for it, I've got to bring the people in or partner up with the people who have. So frequency is the best example. Hassan lives and breathes frequency. Hassan is frequency. So I'll invest into Hassan. If we come up with we stumble on any problems, I'll try and solve them, help him. I'll look at the business from the outside and go, okay, this is where we are now. How do we get to there?
It's almost like one foot in each camp, isn't it?
Create a strategy basically to get us from there to there. And that's what I kind of done when I first went into the business. It was like, you know, he's got everything. He's the absolute most investable person ever, because he loves it, he lives and breathes it. He's willing to learn, he's switched on. Like, he ticks every single box. But I know there's that many clothing brands now, you know, how hard it must be in terms of like funding. And, you know, even like your network of people who you can get in, wear the stuff and things like that. It's like, that's the challenge.
Consistency, probably.
But I've got all them other things. I just haven't got that passion for what he's got for that business. So he's got the passion and the drive and like basically the fund, like the foundations. I just try and bring.
So I guess a bit of honesty is required there, isn't it? For you to go, listen, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you're good at. This is what you're going to do. Are we happy?
But without him, there's no business.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I bring to the table. I can bring every connection, all the funding you need, everything. But if the captain of the ship is not there, then
again, though, it's that humble approach, isn't it? It's when you think you've touched on it in every story you've told.
Without like I want him to succeed more than I want it to work for me, because if it works, it's for me amazing. It's a win. But for him, it's everything. So it's like, I want it to work for him. If it works for him, then it works for me. Yeah. But I just want to see him do well with his own family and get what he deserves out of it more than anything. So
yeah, it's that story, isn't it? Do Frequency and Hassan do much about like storytelling and stuff? And I
think that's on the cards. I think at the mirror he's in the trenches. He's
so many. Well, that's part of the problem. I'm sure so many people, when the time comes, that story will hook people in big time. Because it's been on a bit of a rocket ship, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's steady progress. And again, you have your stumbling blocks and your issues, but that's as a whole, that's business. Yeah, sometimes I don't want to get too involved, because I think you've got to learn as well yourself. So
there's a difference between the way you learn a lesson there. Like whether maybe if there's a bit of hardship there and you learn it in a slightly different way than being not given the solution, but there's definitely a benefit.
There's a lot more value in learning by your mistakes than But I'm not saying there's no value in learning from other people's mistakes. That's what we should do. Yeah. But, you know, obviously you learn a lesson.
And so
a lot harder when it's your own mistakes, do you know what I mean?
Looking at current, we'll go to current Scano because we could probably talk for about 5 hours, I reckon. Looking at current Scano, obviously we talked about frequency is a massive part in it. You've obviously mentioned you've got, I think it's fair to say you got fingers in auto pies. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're a busy bloke. What's something that's standing out to you right now that is just ticking all the boxes for you? Something that you were involved in?
So coming up to COVID, we're doing some developments and we end up locked into like bridging loans. So because of what was going on, site stalled, cost of materials and things like that, it was a bad time for a lot of construction companies went under. And we got stuck on a couple of bridges. Bridges just basically, you borrow the money to build things out, you borrow the money to buy the land. It's like commercial finance. We were paying that much interest. When we got to the end of the site and we got through COVID, we'd done okay. We could have done a lot worse. But we're like, we just give how much money to them bridging companies. So I got a couple of partners who I'm close with, who got a few bob, and we all thrown a bit of money in together and just started to set up our own bridging finance company. And over the last 2 years, it's took off and it's doing really well, but it's passive. So for me, it's about getting to a place now, like the majority of my income is passive. I don't actually have to put a lot of time and energy into making it work.
That's something I want to go on to next, actually, because I think when we look at all the stuff that you do spend your time on,
I'm in schools and like
that's what I mean. So
most of that, and that's for me that works. Is like
that's what I want to. That's what I'll go into that next. I've got one more question. I want to go into that next because I want to dig into how you can be financially stable and you can be happy and content with yourself, and you can be involved in so many businesses, but you can also basically spend pretty much all your time doing things for free, and helping people. But before I go on to that, what kind of, when you mentioned about, like, obviously, because when you with bridging loans and things, and now you set up your company, that automatically puts you in, if it's doing well, automatically puts you in situations where there's big development. So what kind of big developments are happening now around Liverpool that you're involved in?
To be honest, we'll acquire sites, or we'll acquire a site, put it through the planning, and have someone to buy it at the at the end. And that's what we kind of moved into, that because there's big risk with the construction side of things. As I say, I've got good mates who had good companies and they've gone under because of COVID and just different unforeseen things. Some people do really well out of it, don't get me wrong, but for us, it's not for me, and like it's not for me anyway, because the amount of risk and the time and things like that. So we kind of like fell into a place where we're just looking for sites and land and do the connections what we got. Sites will come up. We work with different housing agencies and stuff. We can put it to them and say, do you want to buy this plot of land? We can get planning for X amount of units or whatever. They'll buy it, we make a drink, and everyone's happy. And that's kind of like between that, the bridging finance, which is just passive, and then the properties, which I've managed to buy over time now. I don't need, I don't live a big extravagant life. I've got nice cars, but outside of that, I live in a normal house. I just love taking my kids to school and doing normal things the same as everyone else. And I'm not trapped in that like bigger, better. The more money you get, you want to buy fucking this and you want to buy that. It's like I'm happy with what I've got at this moment in time. And
I think that's it's probably a good lesson for local people, probably. For people that are probably good.
You don't need as much as what people think you do to be happy.
But it sounds like you're probably a really good example of where you have spent years building and working and refining.
I was obsessed with material things at one point, and that saved me in the sense I was driven to earn more money to buy these material things, and then I got to a point where they don't mean, they're nice, don't get me wrong. I was just sitting and say, I don't like having a nice car, whatever. I'd be just talking absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
But like walking my daughter to school on a sunny day beats driving to school in any car. Yeah. And having that understanding is like walking my daughter to school for 20 minutes can be the absolute highlight of my week. The best thing ever. You could put me in freaking any Lamborghini or anything else driving for 10 minutes to school. It just wouldn't come close. So it's like,
and now it's giving you the opportunity to, put your money to work, isn't it? That's essentially what you do. Your
money just buys me time and freedom to do the things which I enjoy.
Which is the ultimate goal, isn't it? Let's be honest. Like, if hopefully a lot of people that will be listening and watching this will be either aspiring business owners or currently business owners. And I think It's something that I've always strived to do. I've always wanted to create something that, while working hard, it gives you everything. It ticks all your boxes. It gives you everything you need emotionally and time wise, and building a team. Like
the alternative to that is you find something you've got an absolute passion and a love for, and it gives you enough money to meet your needs and the way you want to live your life. You know, whatever standards you're happy with.
Yeah.
But if you can't do that, then the goal is to create enough passive income to where you've got time to do the things which you enjoy and your bills are still paid at the end of the month.
Would you think it's a fair? Might be a tricky question though. Do you think it's fair that people could look at you, because obviously you well know you are that personal brand, like I said at the start, like you, Scano or Mark Scanlon is a personal brand. You're known for all the good work that you do.
Yeah.
Do you think it'd be fair to say that some people would look at you now and go, because you're still young, and go, oh, he's always at that? People that maybe are a little bit younger than you, like maybe people my age.
Yeah, but I've been in a position where at one time I was every single penny, it was borrowing money to make car payments, and
yeah,
you know, I've done all that shit, and it's like I would never go back to that.
Have you ever had a scenario scenarios where people don't know that, and has it ever got your back up? And people ever had any assumptions about you that are just so far away from?
I've had some nasty messages on Instagram and things like that,
but you see the outside, but
no one really knows, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm at a point I couldn't sit here and say I don't care what anyone thinks. But at the same time, no one really knows, and I don't even know Mark. I'm still trying to figure out who I am myself, and I obviously got a much better and a deeper understanding today than I did have, you know, at 35. I'm 41. At 35, at 30, constantly trying to figure out who you are, and you're always changing as well. So it's probably you're never gonna find out. Do you know what I mean? But I'm quite comfortable with anyone's. What anyone think, I don't care. That's the truth.
Do you think that sort of serves you well when it comes to failure as well, particularly in business?
Yeah, because I was fighting basically as a martial artist and an MMA fighter for everyone's love and respect, and my biggest fear going into a fight wasn't even losing. It was like, what if I don't fight well and people think I'm crap? And that was my mentality, and understanding that's fucking insane. For you to be at a point where you're going into a fight thinking, I can't even get hit, otherwise, what are people going to think?
People going to say
that's insane. Yeah. And that was my mentality, because I was that bothered over like what people would think of. I weren't not what I made myself out to be, the perception, what they had of me, because everyone knew I was good. They didn't. I did have a reputation for being a good fighter, and in a sense, it had been my identity from being a kid. It was like, don't mess with him, he's... or people would respect me.
So it was your full identity.
It was who I was, yeah. But it wasn't. It was who I thought I was. It was me ego. So it was like, now I'm quite comfortable just with who I am, and I do my best to make the right decisions every day and be the best person I can be in. I can't control anyone else's perception of me, so I just won't give it any attention. I've had bits of shit on social media. I don't even respond, that's the truth. Yeah. I just leave them to it, and it just disappears. So
it sounds like a real nice place to be.
It is.
And I think that comes across in any conversation we've had. I think obviously you've done like I said, you've done podcasts and things, and you're well known anyway. But I could hang my hat on assuming that everybody would leave a conversation with you feeling at peace for whatever reason. Everyone will have their own different reasons, but it's an aura. I think something that you probably built up over the years.
It takes a lot of work. It does. Like,
well, if you
work a lot of time into yourself,
if you didn't, then
a lot of the stuff I do in terms, like I spend a lot of time on my own, like questioning who I am and why am I that person? How can I be better? What are my triggers? And where aren't I so good? And what can I?
What can you work?
Far from perfect. Can't sit here and say still do the same thing as what normal people, everyone does. Lose my temper sometimes and things, but I'm definitely a lot better than what I have been when I've been younger.
Brilliant. I think we're sort of getting to the end now, because we would literally be going on forever. But I've just got a couple of things that I've noted down, because, like I said, there's some research, and the reason why I asked you about failures is because I don't know that the failures. But what really struck me is when I was looking, like even simply looking at your Instagram and things like that, and looking at, like I come across some screenshots that was like a screenshot of your Instagram account that was probably years ago, and all the other different businesses that you were involved in, then businesses that you're involved now, and obviously you're involved in a lot of businesses, but no doubt there's been failures over the year, and I think it's just a real fresh insight to have, to know that if anybody is watching this or listening and they don't really know the ins and outs of you and they've just seen maybe one thing that you've done, one good thing.
I've tried all kinds. I've had loads of mad ideas and loads of them haven't worked. And kind of fell into a few which haven't. The ones which have, they really have worked. So it's, I'm just very, very...
It's that consistency of the drive to
it's that I will just try anything. I will literally, if I see an opportunity or I think something could work, or, you know, as a business or whatever, I'll have a go. I'm at a point now where I've had to learn to stop myself, because I can just dive into things and commit to things. And what I want is time. I just want, like, if I can look at my schedule for the week on a Monday morning, and there's I try and work mostly over 2 days. I try and have 2 days to myself, or to do my online courses, read, whatever.
What does we'll say a Monday to Friday. What does a Monday to Friday look like for you?
An ideal week for me is 2 days where I just commit to work, whatever I need to do, financially, meetings, it gets done. That doesn't matter what time I finish either, but I have 2 days where I spend some time with my missus and we go for a walk or whatever. I have time alone. I like to read. I like to say, like, introspection. I like to think and go for walks and stuff like that. Obviously exercise, and I have a full day where I commit to the school. So that's like my day of, like, just giving back.
How long would you say you've had that freedom for?
A couple of years on and off. It like the balance isn't always there.
That's probably peaks and troughs a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes you'll have a week where, like, I don't have a day to myself. Things catch up on you, but I have time. I go to Slovakia sometimes. Like, I've been going there. I go away on trips and things. And the thing with me, I'm either on the phone or I'm off it. Like, I'm dead funny over, like, again, that's just be here for hours talking about my opinion on mobile phones and technology and things, but I'm either on the phone or I'm off it when I'm working when I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, I won't answer the phone. Weekends are family purely, from 5 o'clock on a Friday evening until 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Don't ring me because I won't answer. So it's like, it sounds
like an ideal lifestyle.
It's a good system, yeah. It is.
Sure, it has its downsides sometimes, as everything always does, doesn't it? But it sounds, for the most part,
I'm happy, mate.
Exactly what you want.
I couldn't really ask any more. It's like, I couldn't.
And what? So, I want to talk about the now, because obviously I said at the start, like, you have to look back to look forward. Like, I've always been a believer in that. But what's going on right now? What are you most excited about? Like, what's getting you up? You've already told me about your daughter and stuff. That's clearly what gets you out of bed in the morning and stuff.
Family before everything. Like, my biggest passion is I just love my kids and my missus and just spending time with the family. That's me love. Outside that, I love spending time on my own, and I love reading and learning and doing ice baths and just, like, all them weird things what all these weirdos are doing these days. Community. Like, my biggest goal this year was not financial or business, or it was literally bring more people together, because I think the world's fucking absolutely insane. I always have for a long time. I haven't spoke about it openly much, but it's getting even more and more crazy, and they're trying to divide and separate more people. So my mission this year, the top of my whole goals list and my vision board for 2025 was bring people together. I'm reopening Awake.
Yeah.
So there's a reawakening of Awake Liverpool. I'm going
to use that in the market.
I'm going to tell people exactly why I opened it in the first place, which was to lead more people into meditation, to wake up, basically, to create more consciousness. I've got a passion for working with kids. So we're going to host a full free kids timetable again. Kids doing martial arts, meditation, proper fitness sessions, because I think the fact kids don't get taught to exercise and the importance of it, and physical exercise is not on the school curriculum. And I mean, kids doing push-ups, press-ups, running, moving the body, for me, is insane. Like, it's absolutely fucking stupid that in 2025 kids aren't even, like, meditation. Well, they should be doing all these things. It should be a part of education.
I don't know of any other place that does that. Are there anyone that's doing that? Anyone that's focusing on kids with
There's a Maharishi school in Scano. I'm not sure what age that goes to. I'd love to get my daughter in there, but I know that's based around consciousness. Like, their whole schooling system is based around consciousness. The flip side of that is, like, that the amount of pressure they put on kids for over basically just being academic.
Yeah.
And they don't. I think there is changing. They are starting to realise, because kids' mental health in kids is a massive, massive, massive problem. I'm coaching groups of kids and, like, after being labelled with ADHD and things like that, in the most respectful way. if you've got a kid on a fucking iPhone till 2 o'clock in the morning, he consumes fucking sugar on the way to school, sugar while he's in school, and sugar when he gets home, and he's not getting a good quality sleep. How you expect him to, and he's doing this 5-6 hours a day. How can you expect that child to be able to concentrate, to sit still? They can't. Like, the truth is, they can't. Even the most respectful, best behaved kids struggle to be still, to concentrate,
So
to focus.
what's your solution to that?
Manage it. Self-awareness, self-awareness, discipline, realising, if you're a parent and you're spending 8 hours, 9 hours a day on your phone, your kid's going to copy. Limit the time what you give to, you've got 7 and 8 year olds with mobile devices, with access to fucking porn.
All kinds of
stuff. Like, the world's insane.
Especially TikTok now as well.
The world is insane. And these devices are play a bigger part in it than I think what people realise, because it's normal. Like, being on a phone is normal. Being on TikTok, social media, Instagram, kids being on them, it's normal. For me, I just don't, it's fucking insane. How can you give a 7-year-old a mobile phone with access to all that information and fucking all this shit where you can get on them if you can? Because there's tell you now, there's 9-10-year-old boys watching fucking porn on the phones. Did
you have you watched that Adolescence, Stephen Graham?
No, but people have been speaking about it.
It's obviously not purely about porn, but there's areas of that where it's relating to like sexuality and being young and thinking about those things.
Like, the world now is so confusing for kids.
Yeah.
Like, I really genuinely feel for them, because I know, I work with them, I know how much they struggle. Yeah. I put something on my Instagram the other day. Kids, like, for me, if you were knocking about on the streets and you got an iron, which it did, that was the end of it. You either shake hands with the person, or once it was done, it was done.
Yeah.
Nowadays, what kids and teenagers especially are so scared of is everything ends up on TikTok, Instagram, fucking Facebook, WhatsApp groups. It's pride and ego which is causing all these young lads to take knives out. They're not going out intentionally to stab someone. They're going out thinking, I can't end up on YouTube and fucking Instagram or whatever.
It sounds, people don't accept it because it just sounds too simple. It's almost like that is the problem. And because everyone knows the problem, it's almost, people don't believe that it's a problem, because everyone knows it's a problem, no one's doing anything about it. It's like a weird, vicious cycle.
I mean, the problems are right under our noses. They're that close, we don't see them. And I do. Like, I do. I see these problems. Like, the digital detox for me, but you've got 140 people going out on Sunday and taking phones off them for the day, and just basically helping them connect with each other, connect with themselves, spend time in nature. My goal after that is, if a couple of families message me and say, which they have over time, since we've done the digital detox, we have 1 day a week off the phone with the kids. The feeling that gives me is mega.
More than any amount of money you could ever earn.
Yeah, it is, honestly. And for me, that's like I haven't got any problems. My life's amazing. It really is. I know, again, bold statement, but I've got healthy kids. I've got what my needs are met. I've got everything. Yeah. So, and I've always had a bit of a knack for solving problems, and now I've been aware of what the problems are for a long time, but I've put most of my energy into getting myself to a position where all my needs are met. And now it's like, what are these problems? What are being going on, which people are facing? How can I can't change the world, and I can't fucking save everyone, but just as a person, as me, what can I do just to make these things a bit better for other parents, other families, the kids? And that's become that is my passion. Like, it really is. I'm able to do that because...
You last question, because we'll have to wrap it up in a minute, but I could probably ask you questions all day. You mentioned ego a few times. So where my mind's going, just I guess playing a bit of devil's advocate, really. When the enabler really to allow you to do all this work again for free in the community and do the stuff you're passionate about that doesn't necessarily have to bring you a penny, is because of the hard work you put in and your lifestyle suits that.
Yeah.
So then when it comes to you feeling almost responsible for these kids, and is there ego in that?
That's a question I've asked myself. Why do I feel the need to do these things? Even like this, there's loads of things, Christmas charities, and
which we did this year, which was...
But it's for me, it comes down to the simple fact, if you know there's them problems, like this is deep, right? But imagine waking up one day and going, I'm Callum or I'm Mark, and this is the person who I show us every day in the world. Then how do you market and use that person to help other people? Because that's what, for me, speaking about, that's what I believe spirituality is. It's waking up as a spirit in this body, as this person or this character every day. And, you know, all my needs are met. So it's how do you use that person and market that person in a way to serve and help as many people as you can. That's what true spirituality for me really is. Because we're not this body and we're not this mind, and these are tools, but they're being used collectively. They're being used against us. And the more you connect to your spirit or like your essence or your true self, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, then and the more I've started to learn about myself over time, the world's fucking insane. Values are all over the place. People just haven't got no values. People are addicted to dopamine, whether that's through addiction or whatever, you know. The world's fucking absolutely nuts. And I know I can't solve everyone's problems, but the fact I've got time and I haven't got no problems at this moment in time myself, it's like I take pride and satisfaction from just doing what I can to help other people. As Mark Scanlon, you get up every day and goes out and lives his own life, loves spending time with his kids, but a big part of, like, and I say this from a place where there's a selfish element to it as well, because what I get back from doing that meets my needs. Because the more I know who I am, I know that I need to be doing that in order to feel the way I feel. And it just keeps that.
Well, I think that has to be in play for it to not be or seem that you're doing it for clout. Because I'm pretty sure, and you know what Liverpool.
But I know you can ask most people a question: do you feel better buying something for yourself, or do you feel better buying something for someone who really needs it?
It would always be for
99% of people, right? And it's not. They're not saying it for any. They'd say, "I get a better feeling in myself buying something for someone who really needs it." And that's in our nature. That's who we are. But we've been convinced that it's like survival of the fittest, only the strong surviving. I'm all for healthy competition, but we you know, I think competition. We're living on values and things based on competition, and that's what has created this fucking massive divide between the rich and the poor. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, there's people who've got billions and could solve all the fucking problems. There shouldn't be any problems even with AI and all these different things that are coming in now. We live in a time where there shouldn't be any problems. There shouldn't be kids in Liverpool and families waking up on Christmas morning with no fucking gas lecky, no food and no toys for the kids. That's fucking insane that's even happening. Because we could solve every problem. If the right people were in power, there wouldn't be any problems.
So but let's just isolate that scenario you just said then about particularly kids. Like, let's use the scenario of Christmas. Kids, families in Liverpool. You already play your part in that because obviously you do the Christmas appeal and stuff like that. If you could snap your fingers now and have a solution for that, what would it be?
The solution for that is just everybody just giving or doing what they can to help someone else. Because like, there's enough for everyone. Like, there is enough for everyone. I know, again, you know, we're led to believe that there's not. But there really is. And like, the thing I've learned, even through like the Christmas charities and things like that, it's like that the majority of the donations come from just normal everyday people. And we've had people coming in for support one year, like, haven't got nothing for the kids, and then the situation has been different the next year, and they've came back in with stuff.
That's powerful.
And that, for me, that's like, you know, you just never know where you're going to be. I always say, like, right now I don't need nothing. I don't know where I'm going to be next week.
But right now
my life's fucking great. I don't need nothing. Do you know what I mean? And like, the thing with the Christmas thing, the people who are helping on the donations, like, we literally give out thousands and thousands of toys, thousands of pounds. The bulk of that comes from normal people who haven't got much themselves, because most of them know what it feels like to have nothing. Or they're on the, you know, they've been on the verge of struggling. But if enough of us come together and could actually help each other, like, we're all okay.
It's sort of like more of a little and often thing, isn't it? If people, the way I see it is, what stops people from doing that or taking action on things like that is thinking they've got to make a whole big change to start being this person that only gives. But actually, it's just a small tweak just to...
But then collectively, there's that like mentality where it's like you've got to hold on to everything. You can't give nothing away. It's like things are hard. You're in survival, and people are in survival. They don't want to give nothing away. Like they don't, because your focus is always going to be on how do I survive, how do I survive, provide for my own
and
family.
there's a lot of that.
And that's fully understandable, because that's the way the economy and everything is designed, to have people fucking basically living in debt, struggling to survive, or to be fucking millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah, one or the other.
One or the other, yeah. But you know, there's people who are doing okay, and I just think if enough people actually like start to help each other, and enough people realise you don't need all these, you don't need actually what we think we need to be happy.
So it's not necessarily your richest of rich that need to help. It's not necessarily your poorest of poor that need to find a new way. It's the big.
It's somewhere in the middle. It's
everyone else.
Yeah, it's everyone just doing what they can just to support, and that's what we see through the Christmas appeal. Most of the donations come from just normal everyday people with small businesses, you know, asking their clients and customers and things like that just to make a small donation. And it's not like no one gives big. Like we do get some big donations, very generous donations, but the bulk of it just comes from individual people. Yeah, people coming in with like selection box or a few toys or a bit of money, or do you know what I mean?
That's a message we could probably finish on. Just before we clock off, I want to just go back to Awake a second, because I know it's coming up, isn't it? Reopening. So I want you to tell people what the plan is, when they can get involved, where they need to be looking to get some information about it.
So most of it'll be pushed through my Instagram. We will set a separate Instagram up when the time's right, which is Awake Liverpool 2.0. You know, or the reawakening.
Yeah, the reawakening. You need to use that. The reawakening is the one.
I will. Yeah. You can help me with that anyway. But it's basically it's a community hub and a kids fitness and wellbeing centre. So there would be free classes and some paid classes, I think, which will be very, very affordable. When I say very affordable, I mean
very accessible.
Yeah. But there'll be free classes as well, and it's basically a kids fitness and wellbeing centre. So there'll be classes every night. Some I've got, like, I'm close with some of the best PTs. I've got an amazing mind coach, Phil. So we're just going to provide physical and mental fitness sessions for kids every night. There'll be stuff in half terms and 6 week holidays. There'll be weekend classes. I've got a mate of mine. She doesn't know yet, but she's going to come in and teach parents, kids art classes. There'll be like some creative stuff in there, but it's just well-being.
Not just fitness, but
it's not just fitness.
Get the mind.
For me, the mental is just as if not more important than the physical. So there'll be a massive, massive push for the kids in understanding their own minds, their own thoughts, how powerful they are, how important it is to believe in yourself. It's like the stuff we do in the schools, somewhere for kids to come outside the school, somewhere for the public to come.
Incredible.
Solving problems.
I think that's, if you could probably summarise everything that you do on a daily basis, is solving problems, isn't it?
You've got to focus on the solution. Yeah. You can't feed the problems. So it's like, what's the solution to what's going on at the minute? And it's the kids.
I think we can finish on that. I think this conversation was everything that I wanted it to be, everything that I thought it'd be. So we'll link all the stuff down below. So if you're watching or listening, you either see me now or you'll be listening. All the links will be below to all Mark's stuff. I'm going to summarise it. Jack doesn't know this yet. Jack's just looking at me with his headphones on. But I want to once Mark's gone, I want to do a little summary, because I feel like it'd be a cool way to do it. So is that all right, Jack?
Ringing it.
Yeah. I want to do a really cool summary. I want to pick up on a few bits that I want people to take away. I think it'd be a cool way to finish it. So thanks for being here for the first episode.
Thank you. Yeah.
Probably could do a 2.0.
We'll do it later on. Yeah. Once it wakes up and running, and smashing it with that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
So that was a much longer chat with Scano than we planned it was going to be, which was probably always going to happen. But just to summarise, I think for anybody listening and watching, it was a great insight into what I think a lot of people strive to do in business, and especially when it comes to giving back. One thing that really stuck in my mind after that chat was, he mentioned a couple of times of he's got what he wants and his boxes are ticked essentially, which allows him to then give back as freely as he does. And I think that's something that as a society we probably don't do very well. I think everybody always wants more. And from the conversation we had with Scano, it seems like he's done what most people can't do, and that's to be content in where he's at. As you can see, it creates a pretty cool guy. I'm sure everyone will feel that from this episode. So thanks for tuning in. Obviously, this will go across YouTube, Spotify and Apple, so make sure you subscribe, make sure you share your thoughts, and we'll see you next time.